What exactly is avoidant attachment? I'm going to get into the basics of that. It's not as complicated as you might think it is. First, this is a new channel, and if you are new here, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. This is relationships and love design for today, and that is what I'll be talking about. But today we're talking about avoidant attachment style. You've heard this term before, I'm sure, and that's why you're here. And it's something that I've studied myself a lot. I have a lot of books and articles and research papers and stuff that I've read throughout the years. And interestingly, I have my own opinion about it, but I just want to give you a basic rundown so that you have some context for what you're dealing with when you think about somebody in your life who is avoidant or has this avoidant style, maybe particularly a partner of yours. So avoidant attachment style is really just a label that we place on top of something. And it's an idea that came about from psychologists, from people who were studying human behavior. And they were studying something that they seemed to see that babies did as they were growing up in the world, very young infants. And they realized that there was a correlation between what was going on in people's behaviors as children and what happened to them later in life when they got into other kinds of relationships besides the relationship they had with their parent. And avoidant attachment style is a specific pattern of behaviors, feelings, and thoughts that come about that describe a person who generally isn't so comfortable in close relationships. They probably don't want to be vulnerable very often. They like having their independence and their space. It's not that they don't like relationships, but they don't prioritize relationships the same way some other people might. And they don't always feel so comfortable being close. Now, this can be for a lot of different reasons. And again, avoidant attachment style tries to capture this idea in saying that it has to do with the way that their parents interacted with them as infants. It can also come about from something like a big event in their lives that shifted things around. But I think what's important to realize here is that any attachment style in terms of psychology is something that can change. And although it is pervasive and it is something that generally we stick with, we don't have to be stuck with it forever. I've changed my attachment style. I've changed the way that I behave with different people in different kinds of relationships. So it is contextual, and it's not something that's somebody's born with and stuck with. Attachment style, avoidant attachment style. Generally somebody with avoidant attachment style, when we think of them, we think of like, oh, they're so difficult to be with, or at least some of us feel this way, because it's like, I'm in this relationship with you and I want to share this relationship with you, or you're my family member, or you're my close friend or whatever, and I want to be around you, but you don't feel like you want to be around me. And for the person who has the avoidant attachment style, they may feel like, I just don't like to share those things about myself. Or, I'm not so into the touchy-feely emotions. I just like to think through my life logically, and that's what brings me satisfaction. Or, I like my space, I like my autonomy, and I like what freedom I have in my life, and I don't like other people limiting my freedom. Things like that. And again, I'm kind of generalizing here. I'm not going into the detail because I don't feel like it's really necessary. And I'm going to explain that now. So I've learned a lot about attachment styles because I found it very interesting. I was trying to understand my own relationships with people in my own life. And I think they're very useful. There have been therapies developed to help people with certain attachment styles to get closer in relationships, to have improved relationships. It has been shown that when you have one of these insecure attachment styles, which is what avoidant attachment style is, that it's less likely that you're going to have a satisfying relationship. So it is important that they study this, that psychologists learn about this, that we do develop things like therapies, and we just get a greater understanding of human behavior. But I do think that we have to, at the end of the day, recognize that this is a label. And this label came about for a specific purpose, to understand people. And we also have to understand that every person is a different person. And we can't put everybody under a label to understand them. To understand each person, we have to understand them as a whole. We have to talk to people. We have to listen. We have to experience them and understand that everybody's different. And so when we say that somebody has an avoidant attachment style, I always put a little bit of caution out there because we don't necessarily know, first of all, that we should be putting this label on them unless we've been through some kind of psychological program, and maybe there's been agreement, maybe from more than one person, more than one psychologist or counselor or whatever, that this is what's going on. And then I would say we have to ask ourselves, what is the benefit of having this label in the first place? Is putting this label of avoidant attachment or avoidant attachment style on somebody helping that person to live a better life? Is it put on them with the goal of moving them towards healthier relationships? Is it, useful, in other words? Or are we slapping that label on somebody because we want to say that they're wrong about something, or there's something bad about them, or, they're the reason for all the problems in our life? Because that's not helpful to anybody. It's not helpful to them, and it's not helpful to you. So I would just caution against the way that we choose to use the words that we use to describe people, and try to be a little bit more nuanced when you think about what's going on in your own life. Don't use a label as the reason to believe that this is the way that somebody is and this is exactly what's happening in your life, because life is always much more complicated than that. And life has much more nuance and detail, and relationships can be so much more fulfilling when you don't get stuck in a box. So think about that. If you want to learn more about relationships and love, if you want to design your own relationship, that's what this channel is for. It's for us to dig into these topics and think about them more. Please subscribe. And in the meantime, I appreciate you being here, and I wish you the best with everything.